The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about the insane.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And this is episode 70.
70.
What is it?
Nikola Tesla.
Nikola Tesla.
We were sitting here trying to figure out how to say his name, and we're both like, Nikola? Nikola.
I've heard it said different ways, but I've heard it Nikola or Nicola.
So whatever. We're just going to call him
Tesla.
Tesla. Exactly.
So anyways, cool. But before we jump into that one, because I'm really excited. I love this guy.
There's a lot of info, too, yeah.
Anything from last week?
Yeah, I do. I just have a couple of comments. Last week we did the Philadelphia experiment, and there were a couple of people that commented that I wanted to read what they said.
Sweet.
First of all, I have a friend that said, I had the pleasure of having breakfast with Al Bielek many years ago. I found him to be a sincere man. I was much younger and in the Philly area for a UFO paranormal conference he was speaking at. I went down to get breakfast in the hotel and he came in. Since we were alone, I invited him to sit with me. Definitely a superstar moment.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
Very cool.
Like, I would love to meet, well, he's passed now, but would have loved to, for sure. Yeah.
Nice.
And then a couple of other comments. So we have a friend, Elaine, and Elaine always comments on the stuff in the discussion group. And so I thought that she was already listening to this show, but she hadn't started listening yet. Oh. A lot of people, like, they need an introduction to podcasts. If you just say, we have a podcast, then a lot of times they're like, okay. If they don't listen to them, you know?
Correct.
So what she said after listening to this episode, actually, this was after she listened to the one we did before that, The Great Awakening. And she said, I could really identify with this discussion and loved it. This was my intro to podcasts in general and yours in particular. I've listened to several more now and will continue to follow along and do some catching up. So we have a new listener, so I wanted to welcome Elaine as a new listener. Thanks you.
Thanks for the input.
Yes, thank you very much. So that's what I have for you from last week.
Very nice. Cool.
Yes.
All right. Well, then, shall we?
Let's get into it.
Episode 70. Nikola.
Nikola. Yeah. I did a lot of research. We listened to a lot of stuff, watched some videos. I was just telling Danny this. I have, I think, more notes on Tesla than I did on Nostradamus, and I felt like I had a lot on Nostradamus.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. This man was very interesting. He went through a lot in his life, and I think learning about him has been pretty cool, and so I'm enjoy sharing what we've learned over the last week.
For sure.
Yeah.
He's an amazing guy.
Yeah. So first, I just want to share a little bit about who he was for people that may not really be familiar with him. He was born on July 10th, 1856. He was Serbian-American and an inventor, an electrical engineer, a mechanical engineer, and a futurist. He really wanted to see a better future for our world.
Right.
His goal wasn't to make money. He was going for the change for people. Yeah. And that's what kind of sets him aside from a lot of these inventors. And like some of the stuff that we watched, I was a little bit shocked to find out the kind of person that Edison was. Yeah. Like, I didn't know he was as brutal as he was.
They were coming from two different completely different places was what I was going to say. Duh. They're coming from two different places, completely. You know, I mean, inside.
Yes.
The type of person, what drove them, what motivated them. Tesla was looking to give to humanity.
Absolutely.
So humanity could make greater leaps. He wasn't concerned about the monetary as much.
Right. Absolutely. And he struggled a lot with mental illness. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of that was because he really wanted to do better, and doing better is so hard. Like, why is it so hard to try and make the world a better place? It's easier to be greedy for whatever reason.
I think the mental illness probably came more towards the end when things kind of collapsed and crumbled.
Well, they talked a little bit in one thing that I read about around college age that he had a mental breakdown. So he did struggle with it his entire life. One thing I found very interesting was that he had a gambling addiction. And so he actually went to school. So he went to college, right? Well, first he got through high school in 3 years. So then he went on to college, and he did really good his first year. And he was actually, like, his college professor said that he was working so hard, he was afraid that he was actually going to die from the amount of work he was putting in.
Wow.
Yeah. But then his second year, things kind of went downhill because he had a disagreement with a professor. And then this gambling thing started coming out, and he started getting into that more and more. So by the third year of college, he had been denied a scholarship because of how he had done in his second year. Not with his grades, but just with, like, everything else. So he lost his scholarship. So then for his third year, his dad gave him the money for his tuition, and he spent that on gambling. So he just really went downhill pretty quickly as far as that went, but he still was able to pick himself up and move on from that. He was good at that. He had a lot of strength. He wanted to keep going,
Wow.
Yeah. In college, he studied engineering and physics. He could calculate in his head so precisely and so quickly that teachers assumed that he was cheating when he was in grade school. He was the fourth of 5 children. His father was an Eastern Christian Orthodox priest. So that's interesting. They were Serbian family. During this time, growing up, he lived in Serbia.
Right.
Let's see. He wasn't a follower, though, of the Christian religion at all. He had a brother named Dane, which I thought was funny because we have a Great Dane. So I'm like, oh, how cute. But Dane was killed by a horse in a horseback riding accident when Tesla was 5.
Right, yeah.
And he witnessed it. And that kind of,
Probably had a lot to do with
yeah.
the mental illness part.
But here's something, and I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I feel like I need to say this here, is that a lot of times when you have somebody that close to you that passes away, they can feed things through you. Like, I really feel like my mom really talks through me a lot. She feeds me a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be who I am without that. Tesla said that his brother was even smarter than him. Like, he felt stupid compared to his brother. So it makes me wonder just how much his brother was helping from the other side. He was young when it happened. He was like 5.
Yeah.
But as he grew up, he was said to have visions. He actually had visions that he would see a flash of light, and then he would see the vision.
Right.
And there's so many things that I read about him that made me feel like he was connected to the other side and to the universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's written, I saw one of his statements that were things we were researching, and where he says that he, in all of his inventions, these were given to him, like you just said,
right,
at times, and they were given to him complete.
Oh yeah,
but he said he never had to write or draw anything down. He could construct every one of his inventions in his mind. Mm-hmm. He could then deconstruct them to figure out and try to change something about them to make it perform differently. He never actually had to build one thing.
No, it's
but
unbelievable.
He did.
Yeah.
He did build things.
Yeah. He had something like 300 patents. I have it somewhere in my notes. I think it's 300. But then there's also a lot of inventions that he had that never went on to be anything. He never submitted them. They were just, sitting around. Yeah. He was involved in a lot of projects, and he was involved with a lot of people, and not just Thomas Edison, but who was the other guy? Oh, is it Westinghouse?
Yes.
Yeah, he worked for Westinghouse.
Well, he was his first job when he came to America was for Edison.
Yes.
And Edison could see what a brilliant man he was, and they actually quickly became friends.
Yes.
Very chummy. They could, they liked each other's intelligence and kind of challenging each other. The thing that split them apart was their difference in opinion about current.
Yeah.
And that Edison was about DC current, direct current, that means it only goes one way.
Yeah.
And Tesla was about AC current.
AC, yeah.
And that's alternating currents that can go both ways. They can go for longer distances. But Edison was most concerned about his patent at the time, which was DC.
Yeah.
And he felt threatened by Tesla and his idea.
Right.
So Tesla quit that job.
Yeah.
And left and started his own company. He was hired later by Westinghouse
Yes, you're right.
for other stuff, but he was obviously sought out by, our last episode was about the Philadelphia experiment, but now, of course, there's no official government document yet that says that it happened.
Right,
But there's
exactly.
many accounts about it. So he was sought out for that project by the military,
Yeah. Right.
according to this legend or this story.
Right.
And so was he also sought out by Westinghouse.
Right, exactly. Some of the things that he invented that we don't, I had no idea for the most part that these are things that came from him. X-ray machines and that technology, remote controls, the electric motor, laser technology, and wireless free energy, just to name a few. He had said that he saw the future. He saw smartphones. He described what he saw.
Almost to the T of what we have.
That was 1909 that
Yes.
he said that. One of the things that I'm sure you know about this, you know a lot more about Tesla than I did before I started this research, that he claimed to invent a death ray. You've heard about this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I take this death ray to be, and they never proved that he actually built it. He did say that he built it,
Right.
but there's no proof that
People were concerned that the tower that he was building for the free energy, which, again, this was something Tesla felt that this was a part of our natural world.
Right.
It was a natural resource, and it should be free to everybody, just like the air we breathe.
Yeah.
So he figured out a way. I think people thought that big tower was the death ray.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
No. And what the death ray is, because that sounds like such a bad thing. He actually invented this to try and stop war. Because what it did is it put an electromagnetic field around like a country, and then anything that tried to penetrate it, if it was a person, it was killed. If it was a bomb, it was destroyed. So you couldn't really...
So it wasn't like a ray. It was a force.
It was a force field.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sounds weird. I feel like Star Wars.
I know. When I saw that, I was like, "Death ray? What?
Right.
What's this about?" This is something that I took from an article that I thought was interesting. It said, in 1937, at a meeting at a Yugoslavian embassy, Tesla told the room that not only was his invention of a death ray possible, but that he had already built one. In fact, he would be unveiling it to the world in a matter of months. Okay, now wait for what happens next.
Right.
If Tesla had built a death ray, the world would never see it. Later that same year, Tesla was struck by a car while crossing the street and never recovered. In 1943, never fully recovered. In 1943, he died. So he didn't unveil it because he was hit by a car and was pretty much bedridden.
From that time on?
I mean, he stayed within
How
his
old was he
hotel
when he got hit by the car?
He was, let's see, that was, does it say what year? Later that year. So that was 37 and he died in 43. So that was 5 years later. And that was the 5 years that he actually...
5 years earlier.
Right.
Right.
There was, 5 years between when he was hit by the car and died.
Okay, died. Yeah, because in the older pictures of him, you see him with a cane.
Yeah, right.
And something that's interesting about that period is that when he was hired by Westinghouse was had pretty much, they were in financial ruin.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yes.
And I can't remember exactly what he did for them, built for them. But anyways, when it came time for his royalty payments, he waived them.
Yeah.
Because he knew they were in such bad shape.
Yep.
And this was enabled a company like Westinghouse, which still exists today.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, we have one of their TVs.
Yes. This enabled that company from falling into bankruptcy and folding.
It did.
And at the end of his life, to show their gratitude, because he had lost everything in his apartment fire, supposedly an apartment fire, where all of his patents and research and documents were all destroyed.
Right.
This is after building a tower that would supply free energy to not just phones and devices, but automobiles, boats, airplanes, he comes up with, he shows at the World Fair, I can't remember what year that was, he shows the first wireless light bulb.
Oh, wow, really?
Yep. So they knew that he had this ability, this technology. But anyways, Westinghouse, at the end of his life, put him up in the New Yorker hotel.
Yes.
For the last remaining years of his life, paid his rent for him. This man only lived on water and crackers, and most of his rations he gave to the pigeons.
Yeah,
he became
pigeons.
obsessed with pigeons. But his room numbers were always, in this particular hotel especially, I believe it was, what was it?
I wrote it down.
Is it 337?
I don't know.
Or 327?
I have a whole section on that.
327.
3327.
3327.
Yeah.
And he is convinced, and he figures this out throughout his life, about this code of 369.
Right.
Which is like a whole nother kind of topic. But I thought it was really neat that Westinghouse did that for him, because Edison was just kind of out for the money.
Edison, like, we watched one thing on YouTube, and I mean, I don't really know anything about these guys until we started doing the research. Really, I'm not a historian. I find it more interesting as I get older, Right. So seeing these things about Edison and what kind of person he was, and how he was using some of the technology he had to like electrocute animals and stuff.
Yeah, it was absurd.
It really was. He was just the complete opposite of Tesla. But what I hate about these kinds of stories is that Edison is the one that comes out on top, and he's the greedy one. And Tesla was just looking out for humanity, and he's the one that ended up poor. And he looked like, in those pictures that they showed of him from like the last few years of his life, he looked like he had been in a concentration camp. That's what it reminded me of. He was so sunken in the face, and he was just
he looked like somebody in a concentration camp.
It was horrible.
That was the issue too. That I think what we read about was the big beef between Edison and him at the end was the reason they were both being going for a contract for a dam.
Yeah.
To make a dam, and they took Westinghouse's contract over Edison, and that, I think, infuriated, because what happened is they started to realize that AC current was actually better.
Yeah.
DC current was more dangerous.
Right, exactly.
And so, hence, kind of the downfall, I think, of Nikola in his later life. I don't think that was all by accident. He was a very giving man, and often he didn't even cash in on his patents and stuff, or people would take them from him.
Right.
And he didn't go after them a lot of the times, to make a big stink about it.
Yeah.
And ended up in financial ruin at the end. But he developed so many things. But the one thing that I really got into with this is about the 369.
Yes.
And that he figured this out.
Yeah.
That he felt that this was a blueprint, or it was like God's thumbprint on the universe, because it applies everywhere.
We had talked about this very briefly in one of the episodes. It might have been the synchronicity, where they say that 369 is the key to the universe, that everything is divisible by 3 or whatever. And he really, truly believed that. And so, like the room number, like what you were saying, everything in his life he wanted to be divisible by 3. But the way that he kind of, like, let's see, maybe read you some of the notes I have here. So first of all, he was really fascinated with small things that could produce big results. So that was something about this that made him so fascinated with it. He witnessed an avalanche when he was about, I think it was like 7 years old. And because of the way that that avalanche worked and how quickly it happened and the whole thing behind it, it really started fascinating his mind on these types of things, numbers, and whatever clicked for him that day, this 369 came out of it.
Right.
And he became obsessed with these numbers.
Right.
The basis of this is that 3 is the base number of creation in culture, religion, and science. Mm-hmm. And 6 is twice as powerful as 3. And 9 obviously is, 3 times more powerful. 9 represents the seeds of life and is 3 times more powerful. I think you said this already, but the mathematical fingerprint of God.
Right. And it, like, you take a circle, like, for instance, kind of what we're talking about, to give examples, like a circle is 360 degrees.
Yes.
So 3 plus 6 equals 9.
Yeah.
And then the pyramid works the same way. I can't exactly.
It's 90 degrees on each side by 5.
Right.
So that's 450. So then 4 plus 5 plus 0 is 9.
There you go.
It also works with the sun, the moon, and the earth. The sun has a diameter of 864,000 miles, or miles. Mm-hmm. So that is 8 plus 6 plus 4 plus 3 zeros, which is 18, and 1 plus 8 is 9.
Yeah.
The moon has a diameter of 2160, which is 2 plus 1 plus 6 plus 0 equals 9. The earth is 7,920, which is 7 plus 9 plus 2 plus 0, which is 18, which is 1 plus 8, which equals 9.
Right. And if you split a pie up, every piece, no matter how small each piece gets, you take a circle and split it into pies, it's always divisible by 9.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. The way they were and Dolores kind of explains a bit of this, I feel like, in this book I'm listening to, Convoluted Universe, and that is numbers are our way of, it's like air. If we could put something on air so we could say it was there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This is a way for us to put something on it to map it, because we can't see it, but it's a way. That's why it was given to us. When we incorporate the two, they're very much a blueprint of some type.
Right. Yeah.
It's incredible.
It really is. It's impressive. I just discovered that this morning. I went on YouTube and was looking at the videos about him, and it popped up that was his thing, the 369. I had no idea. And there was so much information on it, and I'm so not a numbers person, but it is really fascinating.
Very much so. It kind of drew me in as far as the, what was the show we watched on Connected the other night?
Oh, Digits, yeah.
But the theory, or what was the person?
Oh, shoot. I don't remember what, it was something about how the IRS...
It starts with a B.
Yeah, it starts with a B. Something about how the IRS can tell if you're cheating, because there's more numbers that are 1, 2, and 3, and then it goes down from there. I have to look it up what it is. We need to do an episode on this.
Yeah.
Barrington, something along those lines.
It's somebody's name.
Yeah.
It was the second person to discover this, but it's essentially that you take every number of every statistic of everything in the universe and start from 1 to 9. Your highest numbers will be 1. And roughly, let's say, I think it was like 17% or 30% of the numbers will be 1. 17% of the numbers will be 2, and it goes down and down and down and down all the way to 9, where it makes this curve. And this applies to every number in the world.
Yep.
And I'm talking like distances to stars, sports, statistics.
Yep.
It goes on and on.
Yeah, we'll do a whole episode on it.
Freaking boggled.
I was too. If you haven't heard of the show or seen it, it's on Netflix. It's called Connected, and they have a bunch of episodes. I think we're only like 4 into the series, but they're really cool, explaining how everything is connected, and like this episode, like I said, it was about the digits, but they did an episode on poop, and that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
It just shows how we're all connected. We really are. We're all connected.
Even by poo.
Even by poo. So I would highly recommend it. It's very interesting to see how we're all connected.
Yeah.
In so many different ways. But
that was a tangent, but it just drew me into the numbers with a man of that genius, okay, who was heavily influenced and by Einstein, who's also a genius.
Yeah.
So the fact that he can crack this kind of idea and it's now applying to so many things, he's applying it to his own inventions.
Right.
He is, people say this is a man, he was born in the wrong time. He's ahead of his time. No. He wasn't. He was put in that time.
Yeah, for a reason.
To share and to bring this forward. And we shut him down.
Yeah, we did.
We ruined him.
Yeah.
And basically put him in some crap hotel. Probably wasn't crap hotel. It was probably very nice.
Yeah,
hotel.
It was probably all right.
But compared to the way he was used to living in the space that he had,
crackers.
it just sucks. It makes me really sad when you look at that. And then somebody else that's all about the power and the money.
Exactly.
And were a lot of reasons why Tesla went bankrupt, because the investors that he had started to see and understand what he was doing. And this was, I want to provide for humanity. I'm not concerned about the dollar.
Right.
So they were trying to figure out, well, where's our return?
Exactly.
If I'm giving you this money and you're giving out a bunch of free energy, which I get that, but it takes giving to get,
Just imagine what our world would be like if we would have taken those inventions and done free energy. I mean, this death ray sounds pretty gnarly, but what a great idea. What a great idea. This was invented after World War II, so it couldn't have helped us there, but, there's a lot of other wars it could help in, future wars. Pretty impressive that he could come up with something like that.
Or, on top of that, if Philadelphia experiment is true, he knows how to open up portals to other dimensions.
Right.
And something tells me 369 had a lot to do with that.
Probably.
How he figured out how to do that.
Yeah.
With just coils and magnets and, they seem like such sort of primitive tools.
Right.
I think of that when I think of like a coil. I think of guitar.
Sure.
All the pickups are magnets wound in coils.
Right.
Copper coil. So in that concept in itself, to me, I go, whoa. So like a string can just vibrate above this magnet. Underneath is this wrapped coil, and somehow it captures that sound, this coil, and sends it through the wires, through your cable, through this, and out the speaker. Just that concept alone is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But he had didn't you mention some of the other stuff, like radio?
Well, the things, he got
bypassed on the radio because the other guy, the European guy, Tesla had already basically invented it, but this other guy was like the first guy because Tesla was sort of falling. It was going through that period where things were crumbling, and this guy did the first overseas broadcasts, which took all the attention and put it on him and kind of left Tesla in the shadows, but that was essentially his invention as well.
Yeah.
On top of X-rays, wireless.
Oh, yeah.
The list just goes
300 patents, yeah.
This world would have been completely different.
Yeah. One of the things that Edison did to him was I think it was 45 different machines. He told Tesla, you create 45 different machines and I'll pay you $50,000, which was a lot of money in that time. It's a lot of money now, but was a lot of money back then.
It's like works out like $6 million, I think he said.
So he does this and he takes it to Edison, and Edison goes, I was just kidding. I didn't mean that. You don't understand American humor. Oh, American Humor. Yeah.
Yeah, he said he quit about 6 months later.
Yeah. This is why this poor guy that was just trying to help people, I think, went a little batty, because people, they don't respect the same things back. And when you work for somebody that, maybe even he felt like he looked up to Edison, and then to find out that he's that type of person, it just sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot of random facts about Tesla, because doing this research, there's a lot that we could talk about as far as his inventions go, but I'm not scientific, and getting that all written down was not going to be easy. So
something that it struck me, and one of the interesting facts early in his life, that his mom was really intelligent, and she was what was it? Something about the photographic memory or memorization.
Yeah.
She made him learn to memorize things.
Yes. He could memorize complete books, and he had a photographic memory, and he spoke 8 languages.
She had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
And because she was gifted in this way as well. I think she actually worked on some inventions for other people, they said.
I don't really remember.
I think, but I'm not positive. But anyways, you can see genetically, I think, where a lot of that may have.
Oh, yeah, and what he said about his brother, too.
And influentially, yeah, especially with the brother, because that would make a lot of sense, where he says that it wasn't like dreams. He wasn't sleeping. He would be in a meditative state and see these flashes of light. Mm-hmm. But with these flashes of light, he got massive amounts of information.
Yes.
Like in-depth equations and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And this is going, again, along with some of these other famous, legendary people like Einstein, Nostradamus, that have similar meditative experiences and are given huge amounts of information.
Yeah. It really, I love to watch videos of Einstein doing equations, because you can see he's connected. It's really kind of cool. Mm-hmm. These guys, I do agree with that he was ahead of his time. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's like, man, I wish I could have met these guys, because they really changed the world. And
he was way ahead of his time, but he was put in that time for a reason, and we sabotaged it and ignored it.
Yeah.
And so here we are in the 20th century.
Yeah.
When at the state we're in, well, we could be way more advanced.
For sure. You had mentioned something about sleep or something along those lines. And Tesla claimed that he never slept more than 2 hours at night at a time, and he would just take little rests. There was one time that it was actually witnessed that he went, I think it was 70 something hours without sleep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Well, that will drive you nuts too.
Yes. Sleep has been proven to do that if you don't get enough sleep, and especially at that's major sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
But I understand too that if he could do these little naps, these little meditations, it does help, because sometimes I'll feel like I need a nap, which is kind of unusual, and then I'm like, I don't want a nap, so I'll just meditate.
Right.
And it does help.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't replace it with sleep. But they also say that it's better for us to sleep 4 hours at a time.
Yeah.
And do that
split.
Yeah. I could see that, because sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night at 4 hours, and I'm like, I'm awake. I could do it. So, but 2 hours, I don't think so.
Yeah. The problem for me there is that, because I did that for a while with my previous employment, and I had to sleep during the day.
Yeah.
And then 4 hours at night.
Right.
So the problem is the grogginess, after a nap like that. However, it did feel okay.
Right.
I felt fine splitting it like that, but it was a little groggy.
Yeah, I think you get used to it, and apparently, Tesla is a workaholic.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's obvious.
Yeah. Something else that was interesting that I read about him was that he was never married. And one of the reasons, the biggest reason why he'd never married, is because he felt that chastity was important to his scientific abilities. And that if he focused on a relationship and on sex, he would not be able to do his work. So
wow.
he just didn't.
He was just dedicated.
He was extremely dedicated. He also created an artificial tidal wave. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, the drop bomb.
The bouncing bomb.
The bouncing bomb, sorry. Yeah.
Bouncing bomb, yeah. It was supposed to be like a weapon for war, which is funny because you think, if you don't want war, but it was basically what they were trying to do was replicate a tsunami with explosives.
Right.
And he was able to do that.
I think he was probably trying to cause less harm on the land, with fire and explosion. But I don't know how much he was thinking about the ecosystem in the water when you do that.
Right.
And like you said, it didn't really work. They used it in World War II, but it caused a flood.
Oh, interesting.
It didn't really cause it broke a dam, I think, in Germany.
Yeah.
From a flood, but it didn't really cause a tsunami.
Yeah, I think, it's same with the Philadelphia experiment. It's he didn't want it to get too crazy.
Oh, and he backed out and sabotaged it by changing things, and that other guy came in, Van Neumann or whatever, and he made tweaks to the thing, and that's why I think the whole thing went wrong.
Right.
I believe Tesla was smart enough to know how to do it and do it right.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to go right out of the gate using human guinea pigs.
Right. No, definitely not.
Again, he's looking out for humanity.
Exactly.
He wants to make advancements, but he doesn't want to hurt humanity.
That's right. We need more people like that.
Some of these other people, humanity is at the bottom of their list.
Right.
The dollar and the power is at the top.
It's all about how much money they're going to make while they're here so that they can enjoy it, but they don't think about what's going to come next.
Right.
Where Tesla was like, I just want, the future to be bright and, people to be taken care of. And it's sad that somebody like that.
I definitely believe that he was reincarnated. I believe that he was brought back to help bring back this ancient technology and information, things that the Egyptians were able to do, all this stuff. And it was wiped out for a reason because it was being abused. And he promised to come back and bring it back to light. This is my personal opinion. That he promised to come back and help bring it back to light, but for good intention.
Right.
And because that was his mainstay and all that, that ruined him.
Right.
Because he was surrounded by the money and the greed and the power.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you say that because one of the things that I read about him was that he did have flashbacks of previous lives. It didn't get into what they were, but you could tell that he believed in, the connection to the universe, obviously. He was very connected himself, so that doesn't surprise me.
The tower that he built, which he actually was tested, it worked.
Yeah.
There was people that witnessed it. The diagrams compared to the diagram of a pyramid internally is very similar.
Yeah.
To it. If not exact. It doesn't look like a pyramid, but its components were very similar.
Yeah, that's where he got that basis off of, if I remember correctly, was something that we watched. Yeah, that's impressive.
So I don't doubt for a second that he was brought back as okay, are humans ready for this yet?
Yeah, and then guess what?
Nope.
No. Surprising.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's coming. It's all, all these stories. Stories and legends, I think, aren't around because there's some hogwash. They're around because they meant something then, and they should mean something now.
That's right. Absolutely. Let's see what else I could tell you about Tesla. He did become a citizen of the United States because, like I said, he was Serbian. And in 1891, at the age of 35, he did become a naturalized citizen of the United States.
Yeah, I think it said it took him 7 years. He was here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he spent the rest of his life really, for the first part of his life, he spent making these patents and selling them. But the rest of his life, he really spent creating what he wanted to create. He didn't have to make money because he lived off of his patents. And that did suffice him for a long time, and he was able to do that. Unfortunately, with the gambling and the mental health issues and with his wanting to be so generous, he just was his own downfall.
Yeah.
And he died very lonely, and that's sad. And
yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah.
For somebody that, But I really admired hearing that about Westinghouse. At least they did that for him.
Yeah, I wrote that down. Let's see. Because I have a couple other things. I did like in the timeline of his life. Let's see. So this, I'm going to start here. It says, in 1887, Tesla developed an induction motor that ran on alternating current, which is AC. That's what we were talking about. Long story short, Westinghouse bought Tesla's design. He bought it for $60,000 cash, and then he paid Tesla royalties of $2.50 for each motor sold. In 1890, the near collapse of Barings Bank in London triggered financial panic. This caused Westinghouse to have to redistribute its debt. And Westinghouse explained this to Tesla. And Tesla, I think you had talked about this before, that he said, not only am I not going to make it so you don't have to pay me royalties, but I'm tearing up the contract so you don't ever have to pay me royalties.
Yeah.
And that is actually what helped Westinghouse to be able to come back from the brink of extinction.
Yep.
So, and then 6 years later, Westinghouse purchased the motor patent from Tesla for a lump sum of $216,000. And so that's kind of what he lived off of, was all of that money. And then, like you said, when he ran out of money and was living, tough times, Westinghouse came back and said, hey, you did this for me.
Right.
I'm going to do this for you. And put him up in a hotel for the last 5 years of his life.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
This is literally like this much of like a small portion of this man's life. It took up 6 pages, and I think there's probably still a little bit more in there somewhere. But this is just the surface.
Right. Every time that I've heard about him and I've read about him, I immediately think 2 things, and the first one is like this wonderment of like, how could a mind do that?
Right.
And then the other part of it is total overwhelming sadness.
Yeah.
For him.
For him, yeah.
But when I go back to the first one, the wonderment, and I start thinking about the mind and going, are these people special?
I don't think so.
Are they just accepted what it is that's giving them the information?
Right.
So they're, this could stir some pot, but it's like I look at it and go, are they any more special than Christ?
No.
He was essentially saying kind of the same thing.
Right.
It's like if you just open your mind and believe and listen, you'll hear. Mm-hmm. You'll get the information and the messages you need. And if you treat others the way that you want to be treated, it'll be fine.
Right.
But because we don't have this common, as a society, this common view, or, same view on it, it can't be fine, but these people that stand out as special or geniuses, to me, they're special because we're all special.
Right.
You're special.
We're all special.
Just for who you are.
Right. That's for you.
But I just look at it as they're people that are put here, that come to this life to try to share with us and tell us the truth about so many things that we don't have a clue of.
The one thing that when you were talking about this and I heard this, not just with like Einstein and Tesla, but also like Nostradamus and a couple of these other guys that were very connected, is that they all had a belief in what a lot of people consider to be magic. And it's not magic. These are actually things that can be done.
Yeah.
It's just that these men believed that it could be done.
Right.
They all had their own thing, but they all believed that magic was real, which it is to a certain extent, if you want to look at it as magic.
Right.
I
think the term magic, we immediately think
flashy little,
If I was to go, what is the actual definition? I'm just going to throw it out here. My mind would be like a false reality.
Right.
So you're creating a false reality.
Right.
Magic. Mm-hmm. But the truth is this is not false. there is actually supernatural magic around all of us and this planet and this universe all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But because we can't see it outside of our normal 5 senses,
Right.
when in actuality we have 360 senses, which equals
360,
9.
yep. Mm-hmm.
That's different. And I think I don't know if they were tapping into all 360 of these senses, but these people that are on this planet that we view as special or gifted or genius or holy,
Yeah.
they're here for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to finally get the message.
Right.
And realize it's not magic.
Right.
It's reality.
I think Tesla is a good example. Like, I don't know much about Einstein's life, but from what I understand, I don't think he had the downfall that Tesla did. So it shows you really that if you have this gift, which really we all do, but if you know how to use it and can tap into this so-called magic, that it really too is about what you do with it and how you apply it. Mm-hmm. Because Tesla, I hate to say it, but he could have done a lot more. He just used his, I don't know how to say it, his abilities or his time maybe in a different way than what would have gotten him farther. So it was like he followed, I feel, his path and his instincts and what he was being told. But if he just maybe would have taken a little bit different of a route or something, maybe it would have been different, you know? And maybe Einstein, maybe he listened more. You know, I would love to be able to talk to these guys, which I guess I could if I really tapped into them. I could probably connect. But just to find out, like, what they thought, because none of these guys really came out and said, I have a connection to the other side. Right. They said that they felt things that would run through them, like they were connected to a higher power, but none of them actually ever came out and said that they had these abilities.
Right.
I would love to know.
Yeah, and I think that may have a lot to do with society at those times and whether you're a witch. We don't, I'm a scientist, but if I say this, people are going to think I'm some sort of witch. And then I'm out of work.
Discredited.
Yeah, discredited and out of work. So I get it. They, and maybe it's just something they couldn't put into words themselves or how to explain. Is this the source or God or the ultimate energy working through me, sharing with me? Or is it my loved ones?
Right.
And other souls? And
well, and here's a twist to it, too. And this is something else that I read, that there are people that believe that it was also aliens that were talking to Tesla and giving him this information, which is also very possible.
It is possible because if you can connect to one energy, you can connect to any energy. And Samantha is a perfect example of this because I can see her all the time, day in and day out, doing her work. And 1 minute it might be I'm connecting to somebody's loved one who passed. It might be I'm connecting to somebody's dog who's alive, or it's somebody's horse or somebody's snake or, whatever it is. So if you have this ability, you have the ability.
Right.
Your limitations is only your perception.
It's in your mind.
And somehow Einstein, Nostradamus, Tesla, and many others are somehow able to get themselves into a state of mind just like you can, where you sort of just eliminate that doubt even for a moment.
That's the biggest part of it, is eliminating that doubt, is believing in what you're hearing. And I say this to you all the time, that I believe too, I put musicians in this category, that I believe that the other side, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, speaks through musicians, because music is a divine source. So in order to get their point across, they put the music through us. A lot of songwriters, when they're sitting there and they're writing, you can see they're connected. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it happens to me. I mean, even if where did that come from?
Right, exactly. All
I
of a
don't
sudden,
care, but I'm going to keep it.
Yeah. Right, exactly. But my point is I think that a lot of musicians or geniuses or whoever, they don't realize that that's what's happening. Because even for me, I I've kind of figured I had some kind of abilities my whole life, but didn't really know how it worked. And I would hear things a lot or have visions and just write them off, you know, because how could it be? How could it be possible?
Yep.
And so I think a lot of these guys, that's exactly what they did too, is that they just chalked it off to I'm a genius or, you know.
But you're so on point there, I think, with where the information comes from. Do we ultimately know? No. But the beauty of it is there's so many resources that it could come from.
That's right.
That the energy is one.
Yep.
Everybody's looking out for what's best for every single planet in this universe.
Right.
And every other universe.
Right.
That is just the law of nature.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of Dolores's sessions with clients, she puts people in past life regression therapy where she does talk to other alien life.
Right.
Whether it's the person themselves that was an alien or they were somehow talked, she just can connect directly to a source.
Right.
Sometimes it's not even a past life regression. She's just able to connect. Same way she was able to connect with Nostradamus.
Right.
So it's incredible.
Yeah.
And my... I was just watched this the other day. I told you when you were making dinner yesterday. All the UFO footage NASA has compiled over, 68? Or when did we first start going?
I can't remember, but yeah.
Maybe, or not to the moon, but even orbiting stuff. So maybe it was like 65, 66. There was only 20 minutes of footage.
Right.
I find that
a little weird.
A little weird for this amount of time that's gone by.
Right. But
some of this footage, all of it, super compelling. It's not the stuff that you see that it's photoshopped.
Right.
It's not greatest quality, but some stuff where, since space shuttle missions where they're filming and there is hundreds flying over together.
Yeah.
They're not flying over going, when's the best time we can attack?
No.
When we can send our alien laser beams down and blow them all up and watch them just fry. That's not what's going on here. They're actually part of our protection.
Right.
They're trying to get our attention and go, hey, guys, you see us flying around?
Yeah.
You wonder why you're not doing that?
Right.
Because you won't stop doubting.
Right. Well, and I think we may have talked about this in the alien episode, but, people think these aliens want to blow up our planet. Well, let me tell you, if they blow up our planet, it throws off the entire solar system. So they are not going to do that because then they're going to mess with a whole bunch of stuff. So
it's a chain reaction,
yeah.
And it would have an effect on everything around it.
And that's another thing that they're trying to prevent us from doing that to our own planet.
Absolutely.
Because if it affects this Earth, it affects the other planets that have life on it.
It's a resounding echo.
So think about that next time you throw your plastic in the trash.
I mean, is there other species out there in the world that would love to eat humans? Probably. Not in the world, in the universe, excuse me. Yeah, probably, but there's so many more that want to protect.
Right.
And watch us grow and become as advanced and peaceful as they are.
They're probably watching us right now going, bunch of idiots.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. But so that information very much.
Yeah.
I wish that there was some scientist that would sit down and go through some of these kind of sessions that Dolores did and really research what these guys are talking about and try to make it.
Right, for sure.
But Tesla, there's going to be another Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be many. Mm-hmm. Because this information can no longer be stifled because of greed and money and power. This is all part of the shift in the Great Awakening, and all this is encompassed in that. And it has to come out in pieces because society will have a conniption fit if you dump everything on it at once.
Oh, that's for sure.
But little by little, just as we're witnessing, oh, so-and-so admitted to this, and now this is out. Isn't that funny?
And then here's all this UFO footage so that we can take your mind off.
Which we have fought tooth and nail to hide and deny for decades.
Yeah.
Which at the cost of who?
Right.
When, again, they could be here to share, and the only way that we actually get information from them as far as I know, is if something crashes or
Right.
then we have something to
Right.
reverse engineer, test, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But maybe if we didn't approach it in such an aggressive
Right.
manner and we're more like open armed, like, can you tell us what we're doing wrong and how to make it better?
As a species, we're just so defensive. It's like, even if, most of us were like, oh, welcome, aliens, can we get you anything? There would still be that mob that wants to kill them. It's like...
And they know that.
That's exactly
So
right.
that's why they're just observing from afar.
Yes. Staying a close
But
distance.
they do come here, and they do interact with us. They do walk with us, and it's not to overtake.
No.
It's to help.
So that's very possible that Tesla was getting help.
I definitely believe it, and I definitely I look forward to the next guy. I wondered if maybe Elon was kind of like the next guy,
Right.
And there was an irony there that he chose Tesla as a name for his company.
Yes.
But this guy's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
Is he as smart as Tesla? I don't know.
I don't know. He's still young.
Yeah,
It will give it time.
but there's going to be many like that, and we need that.
That's exactly what we need. And ones that are looking to give back and aren't so greedy.
Right.
Because the greed is what's getting to us.
But he's an amazing man. I wish that there was some way to kind of, I don't know. It's hard to feel like we jump around on this one
Right.
because
Oh,
there's
yeah.
so much information about him, but so little known about him, yet a lot known about him.
Right.
But
And there's like so many articles that I read that they talk about something in his life and they just leave it with the negatives to it. They don't tell you like, but on the flip side, or you know what I mean? So they're painting him in one light
Right.
while not really saying to you,
gee, I wonder who does that.
yeah, right, exactly.
Well,
That is a good one.
thank God for Tesla.
Thank God for Tesla.
And you were right about a lot of things.
Yeah. Remember the other night you asked me, how are we going to talk about one person for an hour? And I was like, don't worry.
Yeah,
And this didn't even scratch the surface.
we can do it.
Yeah.
I know. Well, cool. Thanks
Yeah.
for putting all that in. And
Yeah, for sure. You helped.
if anybody out there, there's a lot of videos and things you can find about him, but and some really neat photographs too, where
Yeah.
there's one where he's sitting in a room with like these big giant energy. It was sort of the precursor, I think, to the tower he built.
Yeah.
But he was sitting in these room with these big coils, making these giant electrical sparks, and he's just sitting in a chair reading a book.
Yeah. To show that it doesn't have to be what it is,
Yeah.
Because that was one of his things. He wanted energy to be safer. Not just free, but safer, because power can be very, very dangerous,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I think it was part of it that the DC was a lot
Yes.
more dangerous.
It was.
And he was trying to show that.
That's right.
That,
Exactly.
look, AC isn't, I'm sitting in a room full of lightning bolts.
Right. And Edison was like, well, I already did everything in DC, so I'm not switching over. And,
Right.
yeah. Whatever. He lost out.
He did.
Yeah.
In the hard way, but that's all right.
Yeah. Whatever. Got plenty of
Well,
money.
before we say goodbye, would you share your page, please?
Yes, let's do it. My website is SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com, and you can find everything about our show and me and setting up an appointment and whatever right there on my website.
Beautiful.
Yay.
DJonesArtCollection.com for me, for my art. At DJonesArtCollection for Facebook and Instagram. Working on a new piece. I'll have that up in maybe a week or so. And excited about that.
Yeah.
It's been a little while. And for the music, gypsybrown.com. For the web, at Gypsy Brown Music for Instagram, and at Gypsy Brown Band for Facebook. Still plugging away at that. So
Yay.
you'll know as soon as we know.
Yeah.
But we
For
haven't
sure.
forgot. We're working.
Yep.
Well, that's all I got.
Very good.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for listening in. We hope you got something out of it. Had fun.
Yeah.
I did.
I did too. A
If you
lot.
If you're curious, go check him out. It's an amazing guy.
Yeah, he is.
Tesla, Nikola.
Nikola.
And we hope you guys have a great week.
That we do.
And until next week.
Peace and love.